idiocy.
So you have a sense that evil can be as competent or more competent.
First of all, when evil wants to operate at scale, it needs to make sure that people don't try to figure out evil. When evil operates at scale,
yes,
from first principles, you have to realize that evil must not want it investigated.
That's correct.
The most efficient way to keep yourself from being investigated, if you are an evil institutional player who needs to do this repeatedly, is to invest in a world in which no one can afford to say the word conspiracy. You will notice that there is a special radioactivity around the word conspiracy.
Yeah.
We have provable conspiracies. We have admitted to conspiracies. You have been invited to conspiracies. There is no shortage. Conspiracies are everywhere. Some of them are mundane. Some of them are like price-fixing cartels, or trade groups are generally speaking conspiracies. So the first thing you have to realize is that all of us are in a mimetic complex where you can be taken off the chessboard by saying conspiracy theorist. Good, done. It's like a one-line proof. We don't have to listen to Lex. He said he was a conspiracy theorist on this show. Okay. That is partially distorting our conversation. If you want to ask me about Jeffrey Epstein, you have to agree with me that that is a logical description of what you would have to have if you wanted to commit conspiracies, is that you have to make sure that people are dissuaded from investigating them.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a fascinatingly difficult idea then, because the world with conspiracy theories and the world without conspiracy theories, to the shallow glance, looks the same.
Well, my point, there is responsible conspiracy theorizing, where you look at the history of unearthed conspiracies, and just like you would with any other topic, just think about how different the rules in your mind are for conspiracy theorizing versus X theorizing, where X can be anything, right? It's like if I say to you, I can say the statement that average weight is not the same between widely separated populations. You'd say, yeah. I'd say average height is not the same between widely separated populations. You'd say, yeah. Then I say, in fact, no continuous variable that shows variation should be expected to be identical between widely separated. Of course, Eric. Like IQ. Whoa, hold on. Right? So we have a violent reaction to specific topics. So the first thing I want to do is just to notice that conspiracy has that built into everyone's mind.
That's really important to state. Yeah, it's very interesting. And as a prerequisite, as you're saying, that would be the first step if you wanted to pull off a conspiracy in a competent way. You would have to first convince the world of that.
I just watched the film 1971 about my favorite conspiracy of all time. I highly recommend it.
1971?
Well, the film is entitled 1971, and it's about the Citizens Committee to investigate the FBI, which was run by a student of Murray Gell-Mann, a physicist, and broke into FBI offices in Pennsylvania to steal files, which allowed Freedom of Information requests that discovered a huge conspiracy. It was a conspiracy that unearthed a conspiracy inside the federal government, a double conspiracy story, which launched multiple conspiracies. I think that the problem with modern Americans is that they are so timid that they don't even learn about the history of conspiracies that we have absolutely proven. So, with that done, Jeff Epstein, in my opinion, represented somebody's construction. I don't
kind of
think
scary to think about.
Yeah. Well, what part of the story isn't scary? I, in part, did something which I imagine may get me destroyed, because I was more worried about being destroyed by somebody else I had a conversation with around Jeff Epstein. Right? So I'm just trying to let it be known that I don't know anything more than I've already said. Now, your friends at MIT, their problem is that Jeff Epstein showed up as the only person capable of continuing U.S. scientific tradition. You see, the U.S. scientific tradition is a little bit like the Russian. It's combative. Okay? And we're a free society and we act like a free society. We're a rich society and we research like we're a rich society. That is historically. And then came the 1970s. And William Proxmire and the Golden Fleece Awards and the idea that we're paying too much and these are welfare queens in lab coats and blah, 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 blah. We need more transparency, more oversight. Everything went to hell. And the national culture of US science was lost. The thing that produced all this prosperity and security and power was lost. And then Jeff Epstein shows up. And a tiny number of funders, maybe Fred Kavli, maybe Yuri Milner, maybe who else would be in this category? Peter Thiel to an extent. Howard Hughes would be the largest of these things, which has different grant structures than the NIH, gave people a modicum of risk-taking ability. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, when Jeff Epstein showed up, everybody wanted to take risk in science. And suddenly a charismatic billionaire says, hey, I can make that work for you. Here's $100,000. Go research something crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, that money was supposed to be provided by the federal government under the terms of the Endless Frontier Compact between the federal government and the universities. And the federal government and the taxpayers welched. Okay?
So that's one place to lay the blame for Jeffrey Epstein, is that the failure of the federal government
to honor its commitment.
Yeah.
Right? So the universities became psychopathic. It's not like everybody doesn't remember what we're supposed to be doing to be moral. But the point was there wasn't enough money to be moral. So it was time to eye each other as a source of protein, as I like to say. And in that process, Jeffrey Epstein said, hey, come to my world. We can do it like we used to do. So in part, my point is that almost none of your colleagues at MIT have that kind of religious commitment to science that they're willing to go down with ship science. Mm. The Galileo Galilei thing became very important to science because occasionally you just have to say, look, this isn't about me and you. There isn't enough money in the world to buy the kind of legacy I want to leave to this planet. This is one of the great things about science. Potentially it's worth dying for.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. Science is one of the things at its best that's worth dying for.
I mean, I'm not eager to martyr myself, but I've certainly risked my health, my fortune. I've destroyed myself economically over science, and my need to oppose these sons of bitches in chaired professorships who are destroying our system along with everyone else.
Let me bring in Grandmaster Uwe into this.
Uguay. Master Uguay.
I think he's a Grandmaster.
Oh, that would make him a chess-playing turtle.
So I read some Wikipedia.
Uh-oh.
So, Shifu is a master. There's apparently only one Grandmaster, and that's Uguay. Anyway.
Is the phrase Grandmaster ever uttered in the script?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But there's a story.
Oh, there's off-script canon? I'm going to call Glenn Berger right now and find out if any of this is true.
All right. You're not supposed to call out my journalistic integrity. But
Master
Uguay. He says a couple things I'd like to bring up with you. So one, as part of a longer quote, recommends that you should find a battle worth fighting. We've talked about several battles just now. What is the battle worth fighting for Eric Weinstein in the next few months, in the next year?
There's only one. Well, it's the Moses. It's the Moses thing. It's time to go. It's time to leave. This place is over.
To get off the planet.
I freak people out when I say that, but look at your world. You just got introduced to the problem of a virus. Wait till it's fusion devices and you understand what it means to have one interconnected planet with no uncorrelated experiments happening anywhere else, you know?
So do you see the foray, your work in physics, and maybe like the echoes of it in Ship Elon?
Everybody who has a possible plan to avoid what is coming if we don't have one should work on the plan that she thinks best, right? So Elon wants to do rockets. People misinterpret me. Meta Eric says, I don't think that's a smart plan. Regular Eric says, all people who have a hope should do that thing.
Yeah,
at least it's Mars, man. At least it's the moon and Mars and maybe Titan and whatever. And I don't think it'll work. And it doesn't make sense. And it looks silly.
But that's exactly the kind of fight worth fighting.
But it's for the same reason that I went on Brett's Unity 2020 thing when I didn't think it had a hope in hell, and people were making fun of it. It's just like, we got to do things that make us feel dumb and silly and childish that possibly have a hope of working. Okay. So everybody should do something. My version of this, I'm the most hopeful about, because I wouldn't have chosen to do if I thought that Daniel Schmachtenberger's Wisdom Project was a better hope. I'd do that. It's more down to earth in a certain way. I just think that it's more probable. Look, we got from powered flight with the Wright brothers and wind tunnels to sending back images from the surface of Titan via Huygens Cassini in less than a century. Okay? What we can do if we can change the laws of physics is something we can't even conceive of. It may be that it buys us nothing. And at least we will know why we died on this planet.
As a small aside, I think this is not the right time to take the full journey, but I feel like you'll guide me like Master Uwe did, and I'm the Kung Fu Panda at some point.
They only have one conversation. We're on our
we didn't well, we're Jews and they weren't, so we talk too much. But the guide doesn't have to be with words.
You don't think Poe is Jewish?
It's debatable. We'll have to go back to the Wikipedia.
Food. Yeah, okay.
Is there that you would guide me through some more intuition about the source code of our universe? Can you comment on where, since we last spoke, where your thinking has roamed around geometric unity, around that work in physics, in this fight?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out when to release it and how. I mean, I've released the video, and the video, quite honestly, I think it has a very bizarre reaction. I think one of the things that I've learned from the video, because the video is coming up on 500,000 views on YouTube alone, to say nothing of the audio. But yeah, it produced a very strange reaction. One of the things I don't think that I properly understood is that most physicists don't talk in this geometric language. I thought that more of the physics world probably had converted over into manifolds, bundles, differential forms, connections, curvature, tensors, etc. And I saw a lot of the comments would say things like, I have a PhD in theoretical physics, and I'm not even familiar with all of these concepts. And I think that was probably a distortion coming from living in Cambridge, Massachusetts for almost 20 years.
So what's the solution to that?
Well, I mean, I can translate it into, I can make this make as much sense as anybody needs to. My problem is, my calculation is that as long as the boomers are still in charge, the same people have these perverse incentives on them where they've invested in these programs that didn't work. So they're extremely hostile and kind of difficult to deal with. The fact that I'm not a physicist has its own set of issues, which is that effectively it's like the hermit kingdom. They don't get any visitors, and they don't necessarily want somebody, rolling up and saying, I know how to do physics. So I'm always very clear. I'm not a physicist. That said, if I wait too long, I don't know that theoretical physics is really going to exist after the boomers, because everyone, and you, I think you had Wolfram on your program. I don't remember whether he said this to you or Brian Keating, but he said something like everybody got discouraged. It was too hard. We can't do that, guys. We cannot do that. There's something about the renormalization revolution that enervated the physics community, because it taught them just because you can see in this energy regime doesn't mean you can extrapolate somewhere else unless you understand how, coupling constants run and what kind of UV fixed points exist, blah, blah, blah. Somehow that discouraged people from guessing, from believing. Everything became an effective theory. The beauty of the effective theory wasn't taken to be really the beauty of the universe, just the beauty of an energy level. So I think that renormalization was one of the most important revolutions that ever happened in science. And also its interpretation by the physics community was catastrophic. Well, the story I'm telling myself is that in part, I'm waiting for them to get weaker. But on the other hand, I don't know that we have any time left. And so
are you also thinking about ways of, the podcast medium is revolutionary for discourse, for what, I don't even know the right words for it. Are you thinking of revolutionary ideas for re-energizing the physics community? So basically for communicating geometric community.
Look, I have a fantasy, okay? My fantasy is that all of these things are the same problem. And it goes back to this thing that I read about in Feynman's books about Tartaglia. They asked him this question, like, what's the greatest thing that ever happened in math? And he says, Tartaglia's solution of the cubic. It's just like the weirdest answer. So you're like, okay, I'll bite. Why is it Tartaglia's solution of the cubic? And he said, because it was the first time a modern person had done something profound that the ancients had failed to do. I was like, oh, I get it. It's the thing that opens up new psychology, that says maybe things are possible again.
It's a new orchard.
New orchard. New farmers, new people who can find fruit that they can pick. And once you have one person do that, very often you get many. Like one of the things that we were talking about with Eddie Van Halen, the reason that he created a revolution and somebody like Roy Buchanan did not is that you could follow Eddie Van Halen. You couldn't pioneer it. And maybe you couldn't play as well and as cleanly and as fast and as inventively, but you could follow. Once you understand that there is a tapping principle, right? It was just the beginning of something called percussive guitar. Mm-hmm. My belief is that once we start innovating in the present, everything will come, because everything that around us is screwed up.
On that, let me, with one last question, bring back Master Oogway. The probably the most famous quote of his, right? With yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
It's very beautiful. Although I would have gone with quit, don't quit, noodles, don't noodles.
I feel like people need to know way too much context for that to make sense. It's so absurd.
It's your audience.
To hell with context. Yep, they'll figure it out. Well, let me ask, what are you grateful for today? What is your present? We've talked about a lot of dark things, but what brings you joy to your heart that I can't believe I'm lucky enough to have this?
No, Nyla and Zev. My wife Pia, the fact that we've got our health, all the little things, saying grace after meals. So you're coming over for Friday night Shabbat dinner, so we'll bench together and say grace. It's important to just, like this bottle of water in front of me. I made a point of just thinking about how wonderful it is that there's a quenching bottle that happens to be placed in front of me because somebody cared. Yeah, so that small thing made a difference to me. I still have strength for the fight so far. I think that's something I'm grateful for. I can't believe that I'm not more beaten down after all of this nonsense. I have the most interesting set of friends. I really do. I mean, I'm not that rich by monetary standards, but if there were friend billionaires, Forbes would be all over my ass. I just can't believe who I can talk to, at the drop of a hat. And I'm really grateful. I think this is the end of something profound, and it's the beginning of whatever is next. And whatever is next could be terminal. Whatever is next could be amazing. Whatever is next could be a return to the horrors of the early 20th century that doesn't manage to go totally catastrophic, but, takes hundreds of millions of lives in the process. I'm grateful to having half of my life in the rearview mirror. Maybe it took place in a bubble, and maybe it was unsustainable, but it was nice to be able to move around the world without a mask. It was nice to be able to see a little bit of the world, even if it was from a cot in a hostel in some country.
To fall in love.
Absolutely. I mean,
so it's a good life.
Find the last Indian Jewish girl left. Who knew?
You're a lucky guy. Well, let me just say.
Actually, there's something I wanted to just say before you get to that.
Yes.
I forgot to say something. Falling in love with an intellectual collaborator is a special thing that not everybody gets a chance to do. Like, I think when I met Pia, I fell deeply in love with her, all her normal characteristics. And she and I had an antagonistic relationship around geometry and economics. And then weirdly, just like in a buddy picture where in the first half of the film, they hate each other. The two fields were fighting with each other, cats and dogs. And then finally, the sexual tension clearly was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And we came up with geometric marginalism, which is this other theory, not geometric unity, which allowed me to inhabit space with somebody who I already knew intimately and had fallen in love with, and to see the quality and beauty of their mind and to play and to dance. It's sort of the intellectual version of the tango. One of the most romantic periods of my life that doesn't fall into most people's experience. So that was a chance to see something totally unexpected. Haven't really had it since because she doesn't want to revisit the material, but something I'm super grateful for that's very particular and unique.
But to flip the tables on you, for hundreds of thousands, I think millions of people, I can speak, me and them are really grateful, one, that you exist, and two, sorry for your podcast. And I do hope your voice in some form continues to reverberate, I think, at least in the 2021s and beyond, even if it takes a brief pause.
We're pausing at the moment. We've recorded some for future episodes, and I'm recording for you. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's earnestness trades at a discount at the moment because it's easy to make fun of it. And one of the things I like best about you is that you and I are both fairly earnest. We may joke and jab, but honestly, there's a project here and a world to win, as they say. The thing that I want my and your listeners to know is that I'm not stepping away from the podcast because I don't appreciate that people really want more. It's not, this is hugely financially costly to me. I want to make sure you guys are getting the best that I can do, and destroying myself right in front of an election. I think Lex is incorrect. I think that the forces that are trying to make sure that there aren't any planes in the sky that aren't either colored red or colored blue is a big danger given how angry I am at the system. And I don't want to be removed from the chessboard, because if nobody's going to talk about Jeff Epstein, there need to be people. If nobody's going to talk about various things that we've talked about on these programs, I want to make sure that I'm there. Do I think that this is potentially an existential election? Yes. Am I positive that I know that my way to bed is the right way out? No, I'm not. I don't know, people. I just don't know. And where we are right now seems so dumb and so catastrophic in terms of how it is chewing up smart people. that I decided it's really not about cowardice, because it's hard for me to restrain myself. I have so many reactions every day. This is really about trying to plan for all of our futures to make sure that I'm around. I had a huge concern that what happened to Brett's articles of unity was going to happen to Brett, was going to happen to the YouTube channels. I want to make sure that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket. So if something goes wrong over there, so that's the whole idea of the intellectual dark web, which is at some level a loose confederation. It can become a strong confederation if somebody wants to back it and make it work. It can dissolve so that there really isn't anything. The thing is to be hard to kill, because ultimately, when the hit pieces come, they don't come for what it is that they're angry at you about. They come for where they can get you. And so it's very important that right in front of an election, I think that the desire of the old system to defend itself through reputational destruction is one of the most pernicious aspects of the new America. And we have to fight the ability to destroy reputations as a means of institutions keeping individuals with podcasts and the ability to reach millions, like through Substack, out of their domain. I don't surrender this domain to them. They have plenty of weaponry with which to fight us. And I believe that they could remove you or me in an instant. By the end of today, if they wanted us off the chessboard, we would be off the chessboard. I know that's not your perspective. My goal is to stay here as long as possible to make sure that you have enough of a counterbalancing set of ideas and to let and help other podcasters start. And my hope is that works. But long heroism, short martyrdom is a good motto for anyone, and I try to remember the short martyrdom part of that.
First of all, beautifully put. Second of all, way to end the conversation on a disagreement, which is how you hook them for the next conversation to be continued.
When Lex says,
Eric, it's a huge honor. Thank you once again.
Lex, really appreciate every time we get together. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Eric Weinstein. And thank you to our sponsors. Grammarly, a service I use in my writing to check spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and readability. Sunbasket, a meal delivery service I use to add healthy variety into my culinary life. SEM Rush, the most advanced SEO optimization tool I've ever come across. I don't like looking at numbers, but someone should. It helps you make good decisions. And finally, ExpressVPN, the VPN I've used for many years to protect my privacy on the internet. Please check out these sponsors in the description to get a discount and to support this podcast. If you enjoy this thing, subscribe on YouTube, review it with 5 stars on Apple Podcast, follow on Spotify, support it on Patreon, or connect with me on Twitter at Lex Fridman. And now, let me leave you with some words from Leonard Cohen in a song titled Hallelujah. Well, maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. And it's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not somebody who's seen the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Thank you for listening and hope to see you next time.